Born to Jewish parents in America in 1863, Harleen Frances Quinzel was an only child. The Quinzel family was from Hartford, Connecticut, but in 1870 moved to Gotham City, New Jersey. Harleen's father, Arthur, had found work there as a factory worker for Sionis Industries. Harleen's life growing up was a mostly average one. Her family had no great wealth to speak of. Both her father and mother were cruel to her in different ways. Her mother, Sheila, had very high expectations for her daughter. She drove Harleen to excel in homemaking and even in academics. It was important to Sheila that her daughter received an education, even if most assumed it would be unnecessary for a woman. She often went to extreme measures, punishing Harleen for the most minor infractions regarding her studies. Harleen's father, while never physically abusive, would fly into drunken rages at times. His work at the factory frustrated him daily, and he tended to take it out on his family. In spite of this difficult upbringing, Harleen did exceedingly well in her studies, focusing on philosophy and the classics. By the time she came of age to leave the home of her parents, she had her mind set on obtaining a degree from Gotham University. It was difficult to obtain her degree in philosophy due to the sexism she faced from numerous fronts, her father telling her she'd never amount to anything, her male professors and peers jeering at her. She fought through it and, upon graduation, even received an offer to teach philosophy and the classics at Gotham University. She accepted, and after 3 successful years of this, was offered the opportunity to teach a course in the budding field of psychology. The only catch was that she first had to study it for at least a year. The reason that she was approached was because the field of psychology was so new at the time. Most considered it to be a combination of many things. Philosophy's questions about existence, reason, and the mind was one factor. The knowledge of the authors and characters within their classic works was another factor. This made Harleen, in the Gotham University Board's professional opinion, the most qualified. Because she did not have the budget to travel abroad, she was assigned as a psychiatric assistant at Arkham Asylum for the criminally insane. It was a good opportunity for her to gain experience, to study the methods of other doctors and practice them herself. There she worked with Dr. Jonathan Crane, Professor Hugo Strange, and many others working in Gotham's fledgling field of psychology. For the first couple of months, she mainly assisted doctors in their interactions and assessments of the patients interred there. Soon enough, her acute awareness for the profession reached the notice of the warden. Hugo Strange offered to allow her to conduct her own interviews and write her own assessments. Quinzel gratefully accepted this offer. She conducted numerous interviews with a select number of patients and enjoyed it thoroughly. There was still something missing, however. Harleen knew that if she did not have something concrete, an exceptional achievement or breakthrough, she would not be taken seriously upon returning to Gotham University. Not long after this realization, the seeming answer to her predicament landed at her feet. Jerome Henshaw, the merry widower, had murdered countless women of high society using strychnine. This had resulted in a ghastly death, one where the victim's facial muscles were twisted into a ghastly smile. In attempting to evade police, Jerome had taken the very poison he had killed with. Instead of killing him, it damaged the nerves in his face, giving him a permanent rictus grin. This is where Jerome had acquired his macabre name, the Merry Widower. Jerome had been at Arkham Asylum for a few years at this point. Hugo Strange himself had conducted sessions with the very disturbed man. Strange had concluded it a dead end. Jerome was uncooperative and irreverent towards Strange's approaches at treatment. Harleen saw an opportunity in this Merry Widower, her ticket to building a professional career in psychology. It took much convincing, but Hugo Strange begrudgingly allowed her to take Jerome Henshaw on as a patient. Harleen was elated. She would still require armed guards to be with her while conducting sessions. Jerome was a dangerous man. But she saw this as her chance, her big break. Soon after beginning these sessions, Harleen Quinzel was struck by the man before her. Jerome Henshaw, despite his disfigurement, was a very polite and respectful patient towards her. He readily answered questions, cracked a joke every so often, and carried himself very respectably. The purpose of Harleen's sessions with him were twofold: to learn why this man had killed so many, and to possibly help find a treatment or cure for him. It was an exceptional endeavor for her to undertake, but she could have no idea the cost it would exact. She could not know that, In the mind of the Merry Widower, he was the one conducting these sessions. They had countless appointments wherein Quinzel asked Henshaw many questions about his childhood. Henshaw answered with tales of the injustices heaped upon him by his family, ostracism, beatings, bullying, and much more. One could hardly tell fact from fiction in his stories, but Harleen took note of all of it. As the sessions progressed, Jerome continued to share his tales of woe, and Harleen began to feel herself gaining pity for him, an almost kindred sense of the feeling. She felt this at least until he began to speak about the murders. Here, Quinzel truly saw the face of the Merry Widower. He spoke of the women he had killed, whores he called them, who had so willingly given him the riches he'd asked for. He detailed specifics of the murders, the poison, the pain it caused, and the horrible grins left on their faces afterwards. This sudden shift from an amicable patient-doctor relationship to a grisly spectacle shocked Harleen. She went to Professor Strange and requested a brief postponement of her sessions with Jerome Henshaw. Strange granted this to her, having conducted sessions similar to hers himself. Harleen went back to her other patients for a few weeks, but she eventually found herself drawn back to Jerome's case. Her career was important enough to her to begin the sessions again. This time, however, she had no disillusionments about the man before her, his respectable demeanor masking a sadistic killer underneath the surface. Jerome seemed elated to see her again. He asked how she had been, and they resumed their sessions. Unbeknownst to Harleen, Henshaw had been nicking materials from her and the guards with her during their previous sessions. He used these materials, pens and metal scraps, to construct a tool to aid him in picking the lock on his cell. During this latest session, Henshaw suddenly walked forward in his cell, swung the cell door open, and quickly dispatched the two guards. Harleen, frozen with fear by the suddenness of these happenings, screamed as Jerome grabbed her and dragged her along with him. Jerome fled Arkham with Harleen in tow, and they disappeared into Gotham's slums. All of the news outlets, from the smallest local rag to the Gotham Gazette, had the story of the breakout of the Merry Widower on the front page. The story itself gave a description of Harleen as well, telling everyone to be on the lookout and report anything to the police. The police patrols, spearheaded by Inspector James Gordon, sought Jerome Henshaw and his victim day and night. Gordon would not rest until he found them. Gordon's special interest in this case was tied to his initial arrest of Jerome a few years prior. Gordon also immediately contacted the Batman and brought him into the investigation. In the meantime, the Merry Widower had brought Harleen to the abandoned and destroyed former fairgrounds. It had been left desolate in the wake of Jack the Ripper's attacks in Gotham. This made it the perfect place in the widower's mind to bring his hostage. Henshaw held Harleen Quinzel in a warehouse here, subjecting her to psychological and physical torture. Entranced by his disfigurement, Henshaw fashioned himself after the character Punch from the beloved puppet show, and called Harleen his Judy. He even fashioned outfits for both of them. Harleen's outfit was fashioned after that of the Harley Quinn style of comedy, and Henshaw's was fine purples and other garish colors. No one knows for sure exactly what horrors Jerome Henshaw subjected Harleen Quinzel to, but what is known are the headlines that made an appearance weeks later. Gotham Bank was robbed, and the police questioned the employees about the robbers. The description they received was, "Punch and Judy, come to life." A day later, a tailor was robbed. All of the red and black fabric was stolen. Eventually, eyewitnesses went to the newspapers as well. Gotham became aware of a new threat: the Joker and the Harlequin. The papers renamed Henshaw the Joker due to his ghastly grin and his resemblance to the playing card of the same name. As for the Harlequin, almost no one knew for sure. The ones who had a suspicion were the police and the Batman. They suspected that Harleen Quinzel had been turned by the Joker. It was hard to predict where they would strike next. Their pattern of movement had been as unpredictable as the acrobatics of a Harlequin. It wasn't until the Joker and the Harlequin kidnapped Mayor Tolliver that the Batman finally had a chance to confront the pair. The Joker had grabbed Mayor Tolliver while the city figurehead had been walking his dog. Joker and the Harlequin held Tolliver at their headquarters in the abandoned fairground. Joker then sent a letter telling the police what he had done and where to find them. Joker knew that he was giving up their base of operations, but he seemingly didn't care. What he cared about was who would answer the call. Joker had read of the Batman's exploits extensively in the papers. His battle with Jack the Ripper, his apprehension of Clayface, and numerous others. Sure enough, the Batman was first to arrive on the scene. Inspector Gordon had contacted the Bat soon after they received word of Tolliver's location. The Harley Quinn, referred to as Harley by the Joker in passing, attacked the Batman with a giant wooden mallet upon his arrival. The Bat narrowly avoided the mallet. It would have crushed his skull if he had been a second too late. Realizing the fragility of the situation, there were two hostages here, Tolliver and Quinzel. The Batman defended himself, but with none of his usual brutality. While the Bat was occupied with Harley, the Joker leaped from the shadows and plunged a knife into the Batman's shoulder, laughing all the while. The Bat pulled the knife from his shoulder, hurling it at the Joker. He knew he didn't have much time before the blood loss made him combatively ineffective. During the course of his battle with the Joker and Harley, the Batman broke Harley's mallet in half, and knocked out a few of the Joker's teeth as well. All three of them were in rough shape, the Batman and Joker physically, and Harleen Quinzel psychologically. Joker, battered and bruised on the ground, laughed as the Batman stood victorious over him. He told the Batman,
"We're destined to play this game forever, you and I."
The crazed killer then grabbed Harley and held a gun to her head. He pushed the former psychologist forward and escaped by leaping out of the window nearby. The Joker was not found by police that evening. In the wake of this battle, Harleen was placed in Arkham, a patient rather than a doctor this time. The doctors at Arkham could not explain why Harleen had gone from being an unwilling hostage to helping perpetrate crimes herself. Analysts decades later would determine that she had suffered from severe Stockholm Syndrome, instigated by the torture she had endured at the Joker's hands. Harleen remained seemingly loyal to the Joker and would remain this way for some time. Only one person would be able to bring her out of it. Until then, Harleen Quinzel, the Harlequin, would remain incarcerated at Arkham Asylum.